So now the mutants have their own nation state, but how exactly will they maintain it? And what the hell does this have to do with trade? Find out on the next episode of Find Out after this intro. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you guys in on a quick reminder. As you can see, I'm doing a lot of upgrades with my videos, making more videos as well. This requires more time. Be sure to visit my Patreon. That's patreon.com/EricDJuly, and you can become a patron. Help me out in this regards, making the content that you guys know and love. And depending on what tier patron that you are, you of course get vlog requests. So I do videos like this just for you. And of course, I shout you out. But enough about that. This video is about the X-Men, specifically about Powers of X and House of X, as well as a theme that I knew. Talked about this a little bit before, but I wanted to make this video sort of expanding on this idea of trade, which was a very important part of this book when it comes to them maintaining this nation state that is the mutants. So let's get into it. The X-Men now has a more, let's say, nationalistic approach when it comes to the current run of X-Men by John Hickman, and especially, which is what we're going to be talking about today, House of X and the Powers of X. They have now, if you aren't caught up, basically have separated themselves entirely from the rest of the world, operating as a nation state to all mutants on the living island of Krakoa. Some would call this isolationism, but I don't think that's really a fair assessment. Why? Well, that's the subject of this entire video. The House of X and Powers of X segues really into something entirely new. And of course, there are a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that have popped off when you consider how we got to this point. And I'm not going to give the summary of what happened. I did do a video that you can check out. But just know that the mutants, which includes both historical villains and heroes, we aren't just talking about the X-Men, but they're living all together now, again, on this island of Krakoa. But how are they respected enough by the governments? This is a big change. How do they limit this conflict? Aside from their powers, what sort of leverage do they have? They expect immunity, they have their own justice system, and so forth. How on earth are they going to be able to maintain this with as minimal conflict as possible? Well, trade. This entire plan really doesn't exist without trade. And believe it or not, this is absolutely realistic, certainly when it comes to human affairs. This is what a lot of libertarians such as myself, this is what we point to. This is why we are so fond of trade, and John Hickman did a great job of really capturing that idea. And we want to get rid of as many barriers as possible so that people can freely trade, certainly with others in different countries. It's not just about cheaper products. That's part of it, but it's not just about that. Of course, those cheaper products are going to boost sort of the standard of living with individuals within it, contrary to the protectionism and those sorts of beliefs. But it also does sort of maintain peace. If you can peacefully trade with someone that's mutually beneficial, the less likely you are, of course, to, well, do harm to those people. The nation itself will govern all of the mutants within it. And other nations, they're going to be skeptical. They are skeptical. Charles Xavier, actually, he knows that. He knows people of the United Nations, some of them are going to vote against this idea, but we have a new nation, new laws, powerful people that really expect to try their own. They expect to have their own justice system when it comes to them committing crimes, even in other countries. So what could possibly keep these people at bay? Thus, even if just for really the near future, let's say it's just for the near future, just keep people out of their business enough to just let them exist. How about a miracle drug? Professor X has accepted that some of his, let's say, ultimate dream is to really be among humans, that was to be among humans without discrimination, to be friends with the humans. If you've read any line of X-Men, you know this is the case. He's been trying to sort of be this beacon of hope among mutants and humans. He's fell out of that sometimes, but for the most part, that's been sort of his ideal. But now he realized it's a farce, right? So now he's committed to being among his own, but he's smart enough to know that the human governments won't just allow that to happen. But mutant scientists have had several breakthroughs recently when it comes to medicine. We are talking about drugs that can cure influenza, Alzheimer's, ALS, and cancers just like that overnight. This is incredibly enticing that any government would accept this, but of course, this is also about leverage. Professor X says that in the past, he would have given this to them as gifts, right? I want to help the humans. Here it is. Have it. But understanding how humans have treated them, and now understanding what the future holds, which is what a lot of the Powers of X is talking about with more and so forth, he knows that he has to do this, let's say, for a price. He can't just give it to them. All they have to do now, the humans that is, and basically in trade for this drug that can cure a lot of different things, all they got to do is recognize their nation as a nation state, giving them that sovereignty. Also, all mutants by birth, they need to have Krakoan citizenship, and the mutants expect a period of amnesty so they can, again, try mutants in the event that they commit crimes. And they weren't playing around with that, as we saw the first example of this when they sentenced Sabretooth in exile, as they are figuring out how the laws are going to work, what laws to prioritize, and so forth. They made an example of him. Again, we've talked about this on this channel. He committed the ultimate crime, and they feel like that's the ultimate crime. That is the ultimate no-no, to kill another human. And he, when I say to, he absolutely paid the price, and it's kind of dark. Considering the ongoing conversation about tariffs, and right now, I mean, in the real world, it's being used as leverage. This is a lot of the sort of gimmick that a lot of even Republicans, conservatives are peddling right now, considering Donald Trump and God Emperor Donald Trump and what he says. You know, they cling on to everything he says. But once upon a time, back when conservatives, let's say, cared about capitalism and were for, let's say, trade, they used to be against. I mean, it wasn't even once upon a time. It was last presidency and President Obama. I don't know if you guys remember when he was trying to tax the Chinese and taxing tires and so forth. And you had people like Michelle Bachmann coming out and saying, we don't want to have this trade war. And all of a sudden, everybody's for trade wars. But there's a lot of misconceptions about how tariffs work. You'll usually get arguments about, let's say, how China is stealing your intellectual property and screwing you over. So tariffs are necessary for the sake of fairness. I'm going to really save my thoughts. I would love to talk about tariffs. I have talked about tariffs. I have some videos talking about it. But I don't want to really spend this video talking about tariffs. And but I'll at least say this. I will at least say this. Tariffs are taxes on imported goods. It's obvious. So implementing it, you have to think of it like this. When you, let's say, Trump, federal government implements tariffs, what they are really doing is screwing over the people, the domestic population, their own folks. And it's the equivalent to, let's say another country they had these tariffs on American goods. What you're doing by responding to that tariff with another tariff is watching them jump off a bridge and then following them in their footsteps, as you've really done nothing but increase the price on the, again, domestic citizens. All it does is create more conflict, which ironically the X-Men were trying to avoid. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. Like I said at the beginning of this video, if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to visit my Patreon. This is fun, but it just takes a lot of time to record and edit. I am a one-man show. I do all of this on my own. So again, be sure to visit that Patreon. It's patreon.com/EricDJuly. And of course, keep it locked here at Young Ripper 59 YouTube. You know, YouTube is all sorts of messed up with the algorithm as of late. So I don't even know if the little notification bell is going to work for you. Just be sure to always come to the channel. I try to drop videos, at least one video a day. Usually it's more than one video a day. So just come here manually and check out the page. Until next time, y'all be easy.